Discover the touching truth. I donated my kidney. Then my husband surprised me with divorce. The bright hospital room smelled of antiseptic, blending seamlessly with the warmth from the sun streaming through the window. Emily Larson, still groggy from the anesthesia, felt the tug of a faint smile as she remembered the joy in her colleague's eyes when he found out she was the kidney donor he desperately needed. She had always been the caretaker, a devoted nurse and mother, pouring her heart into every life she touched. But something shifted when a call from her husband, Mark, disrupted her post-operative bliss. "Emily, I can't do this anymore. I'm filing for divorce." Each word pierced her soul, the cold detachment in his voice, forcing her to grapple with heartbreak while her body still throbbed from surgery. How could he betray their family, and her, just as she had given a part of herself? In that moment, it hit her. She'd sacrificed so much willingly, yet in her offering, had she unintentionally paved the way for her husband to walk away? Sorrow engulfed her, mingling with the fresh wound of recovery. She lay there, looking at the sterile ceiling, flooded with memories of laughter and late-night dreams shared with Mark. The dreams now felt distant, like wisps of smoke evaporating into the blissful spring air. Was her selflessness a flaw? Emily's breath quickened, anxiety tightening like a vice around her chest. She felt the weight of two small lives depending on her resolve, and the shadows of doubt loomed heavy. What will happen to her children? Days passed, and between bouts of physical pain, Emily rummaged through her garage for mundane distractions. Tucked beneath dust and cobwebs, an old easel caught her eye. She hesitated, guilt creeping in. After all, she'd sacrificed everything, but for whom? As she hesitantly lifted the paintbrush, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. Once a passionate artist, Emily had forgotten pieces of her own identity, collapsing beneath responsibilities and marital expectations. With each stroke, colors flooded the canvas, her emotions surging forth. The artwork blossomed with anger, grief, and ultimately, a determination to reclaim her voice. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. But as she found solace in her rediscovered art, the grim reality of the divorce hearing approached, a date marked in bold on her calendar. The weight of that courtroom felt unbearable, each passing moment pressed upon her shoulders. On the day of reckoning, Mark walked in with an unexpected heaviness in his gaze. "I didn't just file for divorce, Emily. I thought I'd find happiness elsewhere, but it turns out, I was just scared." His admission hung in the air, mixing with the tension of their unaddressed pain. Every word twisted in her gut, igniting unresolved feelings, mixing love with fury, hope with despair. The irony grazed her like a jagged edge. He had been searching for happiness, yet here she was, in the aftermath of a sacrifice, learning about the vulnerability of her own heart and the depths of her strength. Would she forgive him? And could she navigate this new maze of emotions, penning the next chapter of her own life amidst the ruins of a dream? Emily sat in the quiet confines of her living room, the sunlight filtering through the drawn curtains, casting a hue on the memories that lingered like ghosts. Her paintbrush lay untouched on the coffee table, a hint of dried pigment illustrating her emotional disarray. The echoes of Mark's admission replayed in her mind, each repetition a fresh prickle of pain. Just scared. The words felt both like a feeble excuse and an invitation to grapple with their shattered relationship once more. As days slipped into weeks, she learned to modify her expectations. She could no longer allow Mark's choices to dictate her sense of self, especially at a time when her identity needed reconstruction. The children needed her stability, and beneath her dispensing of care, she recognized a flicker of another role yearning for acknowledgement, the artist she had long eclipsed. A decision brewed within her, and it involved more than paint and canvas. The world didn't stop because of her personal turmoil. It was vibrant and pulsating, waiting for her to re-engage. Emily enrolled in an art class held at the community center. It was a step taken for herself, one she didn't even realize she craved, until she found herself in a room filled with both familiar and fresh faces, each wielding brushes that mirrored her own hesitant but determined grip. The first class began with a focus on color theory, But Emily found her mind drifting. Each brushstroke of different hues felt like an exploration of her wavering emotional landscape. Surrounded by laughter and conversation, she slowly began peeling back layers of despair. The instructor noticed her reticence. "Art is about voice, Emily," he encouraged during a break, leaning casually against the table laden with supplies. "You have to let your feelings guide you. Otherwise, you're just painting what you think the world wants to see." His words stirred something deep within her. Were her artistic choices still shackled to validation from others? What if she painted a raw reflection of her reality? Sadness, grief, but also resilience. The thought electrified her, prompting her to experiment in class. She applied knives to the canvas, right angles defying traditional strokes, yielding unpredictable outcomes that unleashed her buried emotions. As she unveiled her identity through art, a sense of power began to return. In that creative chaos, she felt alive again, unruly and free from societal expectations. Yet, as fresh as the progress felt, she still faced the looming divorce proceedings. Days before the hearing, Emily found herself in a precarious position. Her burgeoning confidence nestled alongside fears of judgment, both from Mark and from herself. On the night before the court date, she pulled out her easel and painted late into the night. Vibrant splashes adorned the canvas, a depiction of her tumultuous state, but also a manifestation of strength. In those strokes, she realized she was no longer solely a nurse, a mother, or a wife. She was Emily, a complex tapestry of experiences and aspirations, and she was ready to confront the future. At the hearing, when she stepped inside that intimidating room, a robust determination anchored her core. She planned to communicate the necessity for mutual respect, for herself, for Mark, and for their children. This was less about losing a partner and more about gaining respect for herself. Just as her heart quickened, ready for the courtroom drama, she vowed to fight not only for her rights, but for the example she wanted to set for her children. As the doors swung open, a shadow from the past quietly slipped into the chamber, someone she hadn't anticipated. How would she navigate this unexpected confrontation, and what would it mean for her resolve? Emily's breath hitched as she caught sight of the figure silhouetted against the courtroom's stark fluorescent light. It was Sarah, her closest friend and confidant, and in an instant, layers of love and betrayal intertwined within her. The familiar face brimming with unspoken words reminded her of the uncharted territory she had cautiously navigated. Sarah's presence here felt like an unpredicted storm. It shattered the fragile illusion of control she had wrapped around herself. As onlookers shuffled and whispered, Emily's mind raced. The impending discussion around her marriage was already an exercise in vulnerability, but facing Sarah added another layer of complexity. This wasn't just public scrutiny, it was personal. She instinctively sought reassurance, recalling moments spent with her friend who had always championed her against the world. Yet today, those moments felt tainted. "Why are you here?" The question played on her lips, but she swallowed it down, unsure if she wanted answers or to preserve the illusion of her reality. The judge entered, and silence fell across the room. Emily's focus shifted back to the case at hand, but the gnawing anxiety layered beneath was relentless. She could feel Mark's eyes on her, scrutinizing how she would react. Her composure had to hold. It could not falter for the sake of her children, for herself. When the proceedings began, her lawyer spoke eloquently about the need for respect and stability. Each word resonated. She envisioned her children, their laughter, their hopes, amidst all this chaos. Yet, with every moment, Sarah's presence felt like an anchor and a weight. Would the truth about Mark and Sarah's tangled past come to light here? Or would they remain enfolded in shadows? After deliberations on custody, the time came for Emily to stand. It was her turn to speak her truth, undiluted and unfiltered by the constraints of her surroundings. She cleared her throat, pulling from a deep well of emotion, commitment, and an emerging resolve. This isn't just about our separation. It's about understanding the roles we each play, me as a mother, but also as a person deserving of dignity and authenticity. Her voice trembled, but with each word, she also convinced herself. She painted a landscape of her experiences, describing moments of joy shadowed by disappointment, how Mark's struggles had impacted their family dynamics, yet also illuminated her desire to redefine who she was meant to be. When she finished, she felt lighter, as if each word had peeled back a layer of the weight she had carried. The audience shifted, absorbing her words, but the storm within her remained unresolved. As the hearing was adjourned for a recess, Emily spotted Sarah across the room, vulnerability displayed across her friend's face, a familiar scrunch between her brows. Something unspoken bubbled beneath the surface, and there was a recognition of the emotional labyrinth they both had to navigate. "Can we talk?" Sarah asked, her hesitation shadowed by the echo of the courtroom. Emily recognized this as a fork in the road. Here lay the potential for confrontation, a moment to unravel personal truths that could either ignite the spark of their friendship or lead to its demise. Her sense of betrayal mingled with curiosity, and the prospect of clarity shimmered enticingly, inviting her to venture further. With a measured breath, Emily nodded. This was about confronting not only Mark, but the truth she had long avoided even in her own heart. Did she still trust Sarah? More importantly, was she ready for the revelations that might lie ahead? As they stepped into a quiet hallway, the air thick with tension and unspoken confessions, Emily's heart raced in anticipation. The answers to her questions loomed ever closer, an embrace of uncertainty that could redefine everything she thought she knew. Emily stepped into the hallway, a space that felt suspended in time and tense with unvoiced sentiments. The stark white walls seemed to close in on her as the cacophony of the courtroom faded, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat ringing in her ears. Sarah stood before her, raw vulnerability evident on her face, the faintest trace of remorse flickering in her eyes. "Emily," Sarah started, her voice barely above a whisper, yet loaded with unsaid apologies and lingering questions. Emily took a moment to gather her thoughts, to manage the tumult of resentment twisting within her. It was the first time in a long time that she was compelled to confront a truth far more personal than the one being debated in court. "What do you want?" Emily's tone was firmer than she felt. Internally, she battled the instinct to flee or dissolve into tears. Replaying fresh memories of laughter and comfort shared between them made this moment achingly complex. "I came to support you," Sarah replied, stepping closer, and the words hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Emily searched Sarah's face for sincerity, desperate for clarity about where their friendship had derailed. "Are you sure that's all? You know there's more at play here?" Emily pressed, her candor slicing through the air. She needed Sarah to face the tangled web of shared history and betrayal. It wasn't simply Mark's infidelity. It was the crumbling of boundaries that had previously defined their friendship. "You deserve to know the truth," Sarah said, her voice thickening with emotion. "I never meant for things to get so complicated. I didn't think it would go this far." The admission felt like a slap, and Emily's pulse quickened. It wasn't just Sarah's actions that hurt. It was the realization that she had been so blinded by loyalty that she overlooked the imperfections of those closest to her. "How could you do this to me? To our friendship?" she forced out, layers of sorrow wrapping around each word. "I thought I could help him," Sarah pleaded. "Mark was struggling, and I wanted to be there for both of you." The justification stung more than the betrayal. It was a feeble excuse wrapped in misguided intentions. Emily could feel the sadness bubbling within her rise to the surface, but she couldn't allow it to dominate her breakthroughs. "And look where that got us. This isn't just about you two," she affirmed. Each syllable resonated with cold clarity. "It's about my life, my children's lives. This marks the end of the fairy tale I thought we were living." Sarah's expression shifted, and for a fleeting moment, Emily saw layers of regret, fear, and a deep yearning for redemption. As the silence stretched between them, an unspoken understanding began to weave its way into the fabric of their conversation. "You've changed, Emily," Sarah said finally, her voice trembling slightly. "I've always admired your strength. I guess I didn't realize how much I was taking that for granted." Emily took a measured breath, allowing that moment of honesty to settle. Was she truly stronger than she once realized? How many layers had she shed throughout this process of confronting her marriage's dissolution? "I wouldn't have been ready for this conversation before today. But you must understand, I no longer have room for deception, especially not coming from someone I trusted," she said, empowering herself even as pain coursed through her. Sarah's gaze fell, shame shadowed her features. Emily watched the internal battle play out, and for the first time since this journey began, she felt a surge of clarity about her own strength. This was her reclamation, stripping away not just the debris of her marriage, but the remnants of a fractured friendship as well. Emily lingered in this newly polished resolve, feeling the stirrings of self-identity bloom within her, despite external turbulence. Confronting both Sarah and Mark marked the beginning of something fresh, something deeply personal and uniquely hers. Yet with these emerging truths swirling in her mind, another question loomed larger. How would she move forward into this unknown landscape where old ties had frayed and new paths awaited? "What now?" she whispered, though it was directed more at herself than Sarah. The weight of that single question settled in. The open door to an uncertain future was wide, but finding the courage to walk through it loomed before her like an unscalable mountain. Determined, she knew it was time to dig deeper and unearth more about herself, initially forced by circumstances, and now driven by an awakening resolve. As the silence stretched, Sarah glanced at Emily, both women recognizing the gravity of their moment. Emily had shed her previous identity, but what would emerge in its place? What new aspects of herself lay waiting to be discovered? They stood there, poised at the precipice of uncharted possibilities, as Emily felt a shift within her, a hunger for independence that would shape her next steps. The confrontation had awakened an undeniable force, and she sensed that the path forward demanded more than healing. It required growth in ways she had yet to understand. Taking a deep breath, she prepared to embrace the uncertainty ahead, acutely aware that the conversation with Sarah was only the beginning of her transformation. As they began to navigate their feelings, Emily's thoughts turned inward, questioning who she could become when free from the shackles of her previous identity. Would she have the strength to detach from the residue of betrayal and learn once more how to soar? "Can I still call you a friend?" Sarah asked, hinting at a glimmer of the relationship they could rebuild. But in Emily's heart lay uncharted potential, and each decision would outline the rest of her story. As she pondered her response, a part of her quivered with anticipation. The metamorphosis had just commenced, and the crucial decisions ahead would determine not only her path, but the role both Sarah and Mark would play in her new chapter. With a pulse quickening from her beautiful uncertainty, Emily steadied herself. The real challenge wouldn't stem from confronting someone else, but would rise from embracing whom she might become, an evolution yet unknown, one echoing with the potential to reclaim her narrative, all while holding tight to the lessons learned. What awaited her next would surely define every thread intricately woven into her life thus far. Emily stood in the dim light of the hallway, Sarah's question hanging in the air, an invitation wrapped in uncertainty. The remnants of their friendship felt fragile, suspended like a spider's web betwixt the two of them. She wanted to respond, to say something that might bring resolution, yet found herself grappling with the residual sting of betrayal. Inside, a tumult brewed. Could she salvage what was left of their bond after everything that had transpired? The thought tugged at her heart, wrestled with her desire for independence, and bubbled up a simple yet profound realization. She was at a crossroads, not just with Sarah, but with herself. "Let's take a step back," Emily finally said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I need to understand not just what you want, but what I want moving forward. Friendship is built on trust, and right now, I'm not sure what we have left." Sarah nodded, visibly shaken. "I know I've broken your trust, Emily, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn it back. Just tell me how." The desperation in her tone almost made Emily falter. Yet something deeper anchored her resolve. "I need to find out who I am without this mess overshadowing me," Emily thought, aware that letting herself be swayed now would lead her back into the same patterns, reliance on others for validation and self-worth. Turning her back to Sarah momentarily, she stepped closer to a window, allowing the sun's muted golden rays to wash over her. The warmth felt foreign, yet inviting. It illuminated not just the hallway but also the shadows of her past choices. She realized that the power to redefine her relationships lay firmly in her grasp. As she faced Sarah again, a new determination settled in her chest. "I need space to breathe, to think, and to rebuild," she said. "For now, I need to put myself first. I need to focus on my children and my work. They deserve the best of me." "Emily," Sarah began, but Emily raised a hand to cut her off, a gesture as much for herself as for Sarah. "No, let me finish. Life has shown me just how fragile everything can be. I thought I knew what happiness was, but I lost sight of who I am while trying to maintain the illusion of perfection. No more illusions." In that moment, the doors were flung open to something new, an opportunity for reinvention. Emily's sorrow transitioned into clarity, revealing a burgeoning passion ignited by her newfound self-awareness. "What if I explore my career?" she wondered, an unexpected excitement igniting within her. "What if I could empower other women who've gone through similar situations? Something tells me there's a team of experts, colleagues, and advocates waiting for someone like me to lead." As soon as the thoughts played through her mind, She felt consumed by the possibilities. Wouldn't it be remarkable to take this raw pain and transform it into something shaping not just her future, but also that of others? Emily squared her shoulders as her resolve crystallized. First step, a job search, she muttered to herself, imagining a bright future without the weight of betrayal anchoring her down. With every new breath, she envisioned embracing roles that could make her feel fulfilled and alive. Returning her attention to Sarah, a mixture of sorrow and determination washed over Emily. Our friendship may evolve, but I need to prioritize my well-being. If we're to remain in each other's lives, things need to change. I can't be the same Emily who's been hurt. Instead, I must blossom into someone unstoppable. The acceptance of this new identity sent a shiver down her spine. Facing the mirror, Emily saw a woman not just scarred, but resilient, ready to battle the internal and external tumult for the sake of her future. As Emily acknowledged this empowering shift, she caught sight of Sarah's tumultuous emotions reflected in her eyes, pain, hope, and a tinge of admiration. But instead of feeling swayed by lingering allegiance, Emily felt a burgeoning strength within her, recognizing with growing clarity that her journey revealed far more than heartbreak. It was a gateway into the untapped potential of her spirit. "What now?" she murmured once more, now directed at her own introspection rather than at Sarah. Each step moving forward would not merely be a decision, they would be declarations of the woman she was transforming into. With that resolve expelling anxieties, Emily turned toward Sarah. "Let's leave this moment here and focus on our futures." It wasn't about giving up. It was about redefining, reshaping, and living authentically. But as she contemplated the road ahead, a gripping sense of apprehension mixed with thrill rippled through her. She was alone. How could she navigate this journey without tripping back into the familiar patterns that defined her past? As they quietly exchanged understandings, Emily recognized that her journey had only just begun. In embracing the daunting landscapes ahead, Emily felt the weight of association peel away like an old skin, revealing the promise of revitalization beyond the grip of betrayal. What lay before her would demand every ounce of maturity and self-belief, and she could feel the next challenge rising toward her like an uncharted wave, one she would prepare to ride. Emily spent the next few days enveloped in a cocoon of introspection, balancing her emotions as she contemplated her career ambitions while managing her daily responsibilities. While driving home from work, she could feel the weight of anticipation pressing against her chest. Would her life take a significant turn, or would she remain tethered to a past she was eager to leave behind? As she walked through the home she had once thought infused with warmth, the familiar decor felt more like a museum than a sanctuary. The pictures of happy memories adorned the walls, yet they now shimmered with an unfamiliar distance. Emily felt detached, as if she were a visitor in her own life, imparting a sense of urgency. She wanted to reclaim the energy swirling around her. But how? That evening, while helping her children with their homework, Emily listened intently, her mind racing with new possibilities. Her son, Jacob, grinned with excitement as he described his plans for a science project on renewable energy, while her daughter, Lily, animatedly spoke of her aspirations to be an astronaut. Each word resonated deep within her, echoing an unfurling desire that had been shadowed by uncertainty and betrayal. "I want to go back to school, Mom," Jacob finally stated, causing Emily to pause. The simplicity of the statement hung in the air, reminding her that education could also be a catalyst for growth. "If I can follow my passion, you can too." His innocent belief sparked a revelation. Perhaps pursuing her career could inspire her children as much as it could revive her own spirit. She had encouraged their dreams, yet she'd abandoned her own in a quest to maintain a facade of stability. It was time to shift her focus inward and reflect on her potential. The next morning, armed with newfound motivation, Emily sat at her kitchen table and opened her laptop. The glow of the screen illuminated possibilities as she scanned websites offering resources for professional development and resumed her search for positions that resonated with her newfound passion, empowering women. She started to draft a resume, pouring herself into each bullet point with vibrant enthusiasm, revealing skills and experiences she had previously overlooked, like leadership in various community projects and conflict resolution she had employed in her domestic life. With each keystroke, Emily felt the tension of doubt dissipate, replaced by exhilaration. This process of self-discovery quickly turned into a form of therapy. She recalled times when she had advocated for herself and others. Emerging from the ashes of betrayal, she began to weave a tapestry of hope, and her purpose became clearer with each passing moment. That weekend, she attended a women's empowerment workshop. The energy in the room was palpable, as stories of strength and resilience encapsulated the gathering. By the end of the session, a seed had been planted. Emily realized she was not alone in her journey. Many women shared similar stories, each with the potential to uplift the other. A sense of community began to blossom, feeding her spirit and gushing sensations of unity she hadn't expected. Yet lurking beneath her excitement was a nagging fear, the concern that pushing forward might bring further pain. The memory of betrayal still loomed, whispering that change could lead to more hurt. Could she genuinely trust herself again amidst rising uncertainties? Driving home, with her heart still dancing from the empowerment session, Emily contemplated the discomfort that came with growth. Irrevocably linked to this journey was the upheaval of honesty, not just with herself, but with others. Confrontation with Sarah may be inevitable, but unlike before, she welcomed it now, ready to address the past and look forward, firmly set to break free from prior constraints. As the sun set, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Emily felt both vulnerable and unwaveringly strong. The complexity of her internal landscape captured the duality of fear and boldness. That night, as she prepared for bed, she whispered to herself, "You're on the edge of something profound. Don't shy away from it." But as she lay in bed, her thoughts swirled. What if stepping forward only brought her crashing back down? What awaited her next crossroad loomed like a distant storm, threatening to break her newfound tranquility. Would she stand tall amid the approaching tempest, or would the weight of her past drag her back? The sound of her phone vibrating on the nightstand cut through the silence. The message check revealed a meeting request from an organization focused on women's empowerment, an unexpected chance to introduce herself and present once again. Should she embrace this opportunity wholeheartedly, or was she still too fragile to engage? In that moment of darkness before dawn, Emily felt a familiar tug of trepidation. The time had come to face yet another defining moment in her transformation. Emily stared at her phone, heart racing as the meeting request flashed on the screen. It felt like the universe was offering her a door, but there was an unsettling hesitation brewing within her. The prospect of meeting with an organization dedicated to women's empowerment filled her with both excitement and dread. Would she be ready to share her story, the transformation she was navigating? What if she faltered in front of others? As dawn broke, painting her room in soft golden light, Emily recalled her children's words, so full of hope. They believed in her. Why couldn't she believe in herself? This small yet pivotal moment could be the catalyst she needed. The possibility of sowing seeds of encouragement for others resonated deeply, igniting a previously dulled ambition that stirred beneath the surface. After a few moments of deliberation, she took a deep breath and clicked on the request. The details began to surface, a casual meet and greet to explore opportunities and network with like-minded women. It felt daunting, but she was determined to engage. This was a chance to voice her ambitions and perhaps even reshape her professional narrative. She needed to stop being a mere spectator in her own life. Throughout the day, a bubbling excitement fought against her nerves. The work meetings were nearly a blur. Thoughts of the evening event swirled like a whirlwind in her mind. What should she wear? What should she say? Would she articulate her story without succumbing to the unshakable fear of judgment? As evening approached, Emily chose an outfit that made her feel confident. A navy blazer paired with a simple white blouse. She stood before the mirror, running her fingers through her hair, and whispered a mantra that felt foreign yet promising. "You are worthy of this journey." Arriving at the venue, she was greeted by the sight of diverse women mingling, laughter and conversation weaving together to create a vibrant atmosphere. Emily moved toward a clump of women gathered around a table, each sharing snippets of their own experiences. As she introduced herself, the warmth of their reception soothed her initial jitters. Time passed, blending conversation and insight. Emily discovered that many wrestled with similar dreams and fears, each woman carrying fragments of stories that reflected her own struggles. This wasn't merely a networking event, it felt like a collective awakening. Each shared tale chipped away at her doubts, revealing an inner resolve. When it was her turn to speak, Emily felt the familiar surge of vulnerability mingled with determination. She recounted how her life had been upended, the betrayal that had nearly shattered her. But she also emphasized the awakening that followed, how her children had inspired her to seek out her own dreams while nurturing theirs, and how empowering women could be her mission. Her voice grew steadier with each word, resonating with the crowd more than she had anticipated. The room erupted in applause, an unexpected wave of affirmation that enveloped her. It felt surreal, as if the gravity of that moment, so deeply rooted in shared experiences and progress, was marking a new beginning. Emily realized she was not just reclaiming her own path, she was actively participating in the empowerment of others. As the event drew to a close, she exchanged numbers with several women, each promising to stay connected. It felt strangely comforting, knowing she was building a support network. Yet, underneath her elation, lurked the looming specter of confrontation with Sarah. Would her newfound strength withstand the test of addressing her past? Driving home, adrenaline coursing through her veins, Emily reflected on the night. Each moment had nudged her closer to a self she thought was lost. Although empowered, the unanswered questions of her future stung deeply. The confrontation would come, and she would have to face it, not just for her own sake, but for her children, who looked to her as a model of strength. As she parked the car and stepped inside her quiet home, a sense of doubt crept in. Had she moved too far from the woman she used to be? With her heart pounding, she prepared for bed, grappling with the juxtaposition of her vivid success and the unresolved tension waiting. Uncertainty loomed, but so did the promise of hope. The time had come for convergence, an intersection of her past and her present. And yet, there it was again. A message notification from her phone, this time from Sarah, with a request to meet. Fear wrapped its icy fingers around her heart, but within her, the flame of hope sparked as she realized the nature of transformation was never linear. Would this meeting be the leap into the abyss, or an opportunity for healing? Emily awakened the next morning, the sunlight filtering through the curtains marking the beginning of a new day, yet the weight of the pending meeting with Sarah loomed heavily on her conscience. As she took a moment to breathe, she reflected on the unfamiliar strength she felt since the previous night's event. Her boldness had surprised even her. She had harnessed her vulnerabilities and turned them into armor. While preparing breakfast, the routine tasks grounded her. Interacting with her children brought forth a gentle warmth, a reminder of what truly mattered. Nevertheless, her mind raced with strategies to confront Sarah. Each possible scenario played out like a scene in a drama, images flashing before her eyes of two women entrenched in past wounds, seeking closure. Would the conversation fracture her newfound confidence, or would it reinforce it? Despite her efforts to focus, the thought of meeting Sarah tugged at her in unsettling ways. Emily had so much to say, yet uncertainty gnawed at her. How would she maintain her composure in the face of past trauma? The kitchen filled with the rich aroma of coffee, a familiar comfort amid the swirling unease. She absently stirred her coffee, pondering how her interaction with Sarah could redefine not only her relationship with herself, but also with the lessons that had evolved from the past. Each bite of breakfast felt momentous rather than mundane, each chew a step toward liberation from old ties that bound her. As her children chattered about their day ahead, she realized that her strength did not solely belong to her. It was shared with them. Emily's determination sharpened, a resolve formed to transform the confrontation into a step toward empowerment, both for herself and her children. Reducing the myriad anxieties to one focused ambition, she cleared the table, replacing her anxiety with practical tasks. Perhaps it was the rituals of the day that would ground her before the reckoning. In the quiet moments, she visualized the conversation, crafting her words, balancing honesty with care, and asserting boundaries with grace. After all, confrontation wasn't solely about pain. It could also herald new beginnings. As she tucked her children into bed that night, she felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest. The courageous woman who stood at the networking event was not merely a facade. She was emerging. As the hour approached for her meeting with Sarah, Emily dressed with intention, choosing an outfit that reflected her new mindset, a blend of boldness and poise. She halted before the mirror, fixed her gaze on her reflection, and uttered a familiar mantra. You have the power to choose your own narrative. Arriving at the cafe, the weight of her decision felt like a tug of war within her heart. The ambient noise from other patrons faded as she spotted Sarah seated at a table by the window, head bent over a coffee. The familiar pang of history crashed against her newfound strength. It was a moment suspended in time. Everything hinged on how this encounter would unfold. Heart pounding, she approached the table. Sarah looked up, surprise etched on her face. Emily, she said softly, her voice betraying vulnerability. Fear and adrenaline clashed within her. This was the initial step into the unknown, a chance to transcend their painful past. As they exchanged pleasantries, part of her yearned for connection, but an equal part urged caution. The conversation began with cautious optimism, but Emily felt the undertone of unresolved tension crackling beneath the surface. As words began to flow, she felt herself navigating the turbulent waters between healing and heartache. "Why did you reach out?" Emily finally found the strength to ask, anchoring her voice with intent. "This," Sarah gestured to the space between them, "is complicated." And so it began. The exploration of unspoken wounds, histories that demanded acknowledgement, and the potential for forgiveness. As Emily leaned into her fears, the stakes of their shared moments began to materialize. But as uncomfortable truth surfaced, Emily realized she could not merely embrace the past. She had to lay bare her own needs and boundaries. Would she reclaim her narrative, or would she become ensnared in the very patterns she sought to escape? Each dropped word unfurled a moment of clarity, and the real question crystallized. Would this confrontation be cathartic, or would it unravel the tapestry she was painstakingly stitching together? The clock ticked down, and Emily knew that what lay ahead would either anchor her or drown her in the depths of her own unresolved feelings. The moment of reckoning was upon her, but would she have the strength to dive deeper into her own heart? The murmur of conversations around Emily faded as she focused solely on Sarah's hesitant demeanor. Their past, thick with unresolved conflict, cast a heavy shadow. With each beat of her heart echoing in her ears, Emily sought to navigate this conversation without compromising her reclaiming of self. "Complicated how?" she pressed, her voice steady, yet laced with the vulnerability of the moment. Each word felt heavy with meaning, threatening to spill into places she wasn't sure she was prepared to explore. "I thought time could mend everything," Sarah offered, her fingers curling around her coffee cup as if it anchored her. "But some things, they just linger." The admission hung in the air, a confession layered with regret. Emily inhaled deeply, the warmth of the cafe contrasting with the chill of the unspoken truths between them. She drew on her practiced mantra again, reaffirming her stance amidst the trembling uncertainty. She was not here to be a punching bag for their tangled history. Instead, this conversation could serve as a bridge, a chance to cross over the chasm of years spent exchanging glances filled with pain. "Let's not dwell on time lost," Emily said, reclaiming her voice with newfound assertiveness. "What do we need to confront now?" The shift in her tone seemed to spark something in Sarah, who leaned forward ever so slightly. "I need you to understand why I made those choices, why I hurt you." The rawness of her voice hinted at a depth Emily hadn't anticipated. It stirred a mixture of anger and compassion within her, a blend she hadn't expected to navigate. Emily's chest tightened as memories surged, painful episodes punctuated by betrayals. She did not want to dissolve into that resentment again. Years of growth would be for naught if she allowed herself to spiral into the past. "I want to hear your reasons, but I also need to express how it affected me." "I deserve that space," she replied, guardianship over her growing sense of self solidifying her resolve. "Absolutely, I'm ready," Sarah nodded, the sincerity in her eyes appearing as a flicker of hope. "I never wanted to hurt you, but I was drowning in my own fears." As the conversation unfolded, Emily found her own fears surfacing, intertwined with a sense of solidarity and vulnerability. It was an odd camaraderie, as both women faced their demons together. Emily began to recognize Sarah's struggles mirrored some of her own, complicated emotions interlaced with their recent histories. "While we can't change what happened, we can learn from it," Emily articulated, her voice sharpening. "I've spent too long feeling trapped by those experiences, overshadowing my present." The weight of this realization relieved a mounting pressure on her chest. Sarah listened intently, a mixture of guilt and understanding flickering across her face. "I've wanted to apologize for so long, but I felt like I had no right after everything." Empathy ricocheted within Emily, challenging her to respond. "We can't erase the pain, but a sincere apology can set the stage for shared healing." Here, in this vulnerable exchange, she sensed a shift, perhaps the first step towards resolution. As they continued to unravel layers of truth, Emily became acutely aware that she could articulate her boundaries without being dismissive. Each statement she made was a building block, not just for herself, but for an emerging dialogue between them, a potential alliance unto growth. But as the warmth of understanding kindled, a flicker of doubt crept in. Was Sarah genuinely ready to take responsibility, or was she merely seeking closure for herself? The last thing Emily desired was to step back into the cycle of enabling. With this thought forming an anchor in her mind, Emily shifted gears. What do you want moving forward? This can't just be about reliving the past, she pressed, a newfound courage surging within her, testing the waters of their evolving dialogue. As Sarah hesitated, the clock had transformed from a gentle reminder into a relentless countdown. Emily felt the tremors of uncertainty coiling within her. What if Sarah's reflection of accountability was mere illusion? The prospect of being hurt again made her heart race with primal survival instincts. The potential for vulnerability loomed. Would Emily lean into that vulnerability as a path to trust, or retreat behind the protective walls she had painstakingly built? Her next words could drive a wedge deeper or stitch a fragile bond back together. All eyes on her, the intensity of the moment rippled forward, rapidly inspiring a multitude of emotions within her. Would she break through once and for all, or collapse under the weight of expectations that had become so familiar? The choice lay ahead, and with it, the prospect of a new chapter, not just for her, but for Sarah. As the pause stretched between them, Emily braced herself, fully aware that her journey was about to diverge again in unforeseen ways. Just beneath the surface, a connection pulsed, a question poised to rip open everything she thought she understood about healing and trust. Would she dare to reveal it? As the silence settled heavily between them, Emily felt the electric tension intertwining hope and fear. In this moment, she understood the gravity of what lay ahead, not just for their fractured friendship, but for her own narrative. Healing demanded ownership, and she was ready to navigate uncharted waters. "Sarah, I hear you," Emily began, summoning her inner strength. "But I want to emphasize that rebuilding trust requires commitment from both sides. I need to know if you're truly invested in this relationship because I'm not going back to where we were. I can't afford it. Not now, not ever again." The sincerity in her voice struck a resonant chord. Sarah's eyes glistened, the vulnerability echoing her own fears. "I never wanted to put you through this pain," she confessed, each word laced with remorse. "I realize my actions shattered the foundation of our friendship. I want to rebuild. I want to be the friend you deserve." Emily nodded slowly, absorbing Sarah's admission. It gave her a glimmer of what they could be. There was a spark of authenticity emerging within their exchange, something raw and real that she had craved for so long. However, the doubt remained. Could trust be re-established, or was this yet another cycle of wishful thinking? "Trust is built on consistency," Emily articulated, her determination firm. "I need time to adjust, to redefine boundaries. We must acknowledge each other's paths. I'm stepping into my future, Sarah, and I want to invite you to be part of it, but only if you can fully embrace accountability for your role in our past." As the weight of her words settled, Emily sensed a metamorphosis within herself, a shift that mirrored the blossoming clarity she had experienced at the empowerment workshop. This was no longer a mere conversation. This was a defining moment of personal growth. The realization washed over her. She was not only reclaiming her voice, but also setting the stage for a healthier dynamic, one that honored her past while steering clear of its potential traps. "I'm willing to earn your trust, and I hope that I can show you how much I've grown," Sarah said, the earnestness clear in her voice. "Our friendship is important to me. I've hurt you, and I want to make amends." Drawing a deep breath, Emily felt the tension between them start to unravel. A part of her wanted to leap toward reconciliation, fueled by nostalgia and shared history, yet caution kept her grounded. She would not dive in blind this time. "I think it's essential to start by acknowledging how we can support each other moving forward," Emily proposed. "This doesn't mean ignoring the past, but rather using it as a stepping stone for growth. I want to uplift women, and I believe our experiences, both individually and collectively, can resonate with others." As their dialogue deepened, they began to explore the potential collaborative efforts surrounding revitalizing their friendship while working toward mutual empowerment. It became clear that their stories, brimming with lessons learned through adversity, could help others find strength. Yet for Emily, this was more than just about patching up a friendship. It represented an evolution of self. With each moment spent conversing openly, she felt the remnants of doubt slip away, replaced by confidence. Finishing her coffee, Emily realized their meeting had transformed from a painful confrontation into an opportunity for renewal. She was anchored in a newfound power that emerged from both acceptance and healing. They could no longer be defined solely by their past, but as two women who had grown through shared struggles. "Let's continue this conversation," Emily suggested, her eyes bright with possibility. "Together we can create something beautiful from the ashes of our past." Sarah's face softened. a tentative smile curling at the corners of her lips. "I'd like that." As they exchanged tentative hopes and dreams, Emily felt a depth of connection emerging. This was the desire to uplift one another rather than to wound. Together, they could confront challenges, redefine boundaries, and build a new narrative based on empowerment and trust. With the conversation drawing to a close, Emily experienced an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had begun to weave the threads of her identity anew, articulated through her boundaries and aspirations, the layers of her past now serving as the foundation for constructive growth. As Emily stepped back outside, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. She had risen from the depths of betrayal and rekindled the spark of creativity within her. With her children's laughter echoing in her mind and the promise of a new chapter dawning, she recognized her path, one defined by strength, purpose, and a refreshed commitment to herself. The sun dipped on the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant hues that aligned with her renewed spirit. This journey had transformed her into an architect of her own destiny, ready to conquer the challenges that lay ahead with grace and determination. In the heart of her evolution lay a promise to nurture not only herself, but also to uplift those around her. Her story was unfolding into a narrative of resilience. Now, this is the moment you have all waited for. If you felt inspired by Emily's journey, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't wait even one more second to share this emotional saga with at least 5 friends who need to hear these empowering truths. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover these stories of transformation. And comment your reactions and theories about Emily's evolution. Your voice matters in this community. Join us in cultivating a space where the strength of personal overcoming stories shines brightly. Subscribe now. This journey is just beginning.